All right, Ed, we keep going on these videos, and quite frankly, one of the great things about the comment section that generally is looked upon as kind of a negative thing is we're getting a lot of cool questions coming in, whether they are inherently negative or not. A lot of people are still curious about the details around the absolute best penetrator you can launch from whatever bow platform you choose. So today we're going to talk about mechanical advantage, which is something that is really misunderstood and really important. And I've seen it when I run, Ed style heads and the full Monty tough heads, how much they just go through stuff like lightning bolts. So I think where I'd like to start is tell us what mechanical advantage means, uh, generally speaking, and then we'll dive into the detail if that's okay with you.
Okay. Mechanical advantage is a mathematical formula used in physics that defines the amount of work that can be accomplished with a certain amount of applied force, any given amount of applied force.
Okay.
So the higher the mechanical advantage, the more work you can do with whatever given force your arrow carries. And
Okay.
that's why it's important for penetration. What people fail to realize, and what we can discuss today, is there's a lot more advantages to having this high mechanical broadhead rather than just increasing your penetration. It does reduce the tissue resistance, uh, and that's what basically the mechanical advantage is doing for you. So it allows your arrow to penetrate more. But there's a whole lot of other benefits to having these high mechanical advantage broadheads. And that's sort of what some of the questions had brought up.
Okay, so before we get off in the rabbit hole, not really rabbit hole, the facts, because it is a physics deal, I want to point out a couple of things to everybody about mechanical advantage because this has been chattered on. There's a couple of broadhead companies and a couple of guys who claim to be, and they are actually engineers, but they own broadhead companies, and since their broadhead doesn't isn't long and slender, they tend to say that the mechanical advantage is completely misunderstood, and Ed is wrong and how he is describing what's going on. But I want to start the conversation with this. Look in nature at things that penetrate other things. I will start with, oh God, tell me I still got it. This is a stingray sticker off of a 200-pound southern that I caught shark fishing. Notice how it is not short and blunt. Rattlesnake teeth, bee stingers, the drill bits, the list goes on and on. We do not see in nature, with the exception of shark teeth and 1200 psi behind them, we do not see short, blunt objects as penetrators out there. So thorns on mesquite bushes. You guys need to come to South Texas and run around and try to go off chasing a javelina in the woods. Find you one of them catclaw bushes that stops you like a. I had it happen in Africa too. I don't know what that plant was in Africa, but it had big hook things on. It literally stopped me.
Probably wait a bit, Bush.
Well, it was a lot more than wait a bit because you stop and then you pick it out of your body for about 2 hours. So stepping on top of that kind of long, slender thing that we see in nature, tell us, maybe the top two or three things that we need to be thinking about outside of the fact that it's long and slender and, efficient. What other advantages are there that most people aren't thinking about?
All right. Before that, I got a comment. Are you trying to tell me that some engineer would misrepresent the laws of physics just for financial gain?
No, I am 100% saying that.
Yeah, you always got to follow the money trail.
Yep.
Okay, let's talk about some of the things that we gain with these high mechanical advantage, other than the ability to do more work with the applied force, the amount of force our arrow carries, whatever that may be. One of the things is when you get a high mechanical advantage, by its very nature, it must be very long. This gives you a much longer cutting edge.
Yeah.
Now, that long cutting edge, as it penetrates through the tissues, has a greater contact time with the tissues than a short edge. That means it's got a much greater opportunity to slice through the tissues, as they're contacting the cutting edge. And that's just simple logic. The longer you make the slice, or the more time you've got of that blade contacting the tissue, the deeper it's going to slice, the more it's going to slice. And you do have to remember that all broadheads, as they penetrate, do tend to pull the tissue because you've got that front edge pushing on it. So that's trying to collapse the tissue. But as soon as the tissue cuts, it retracts some. And that's going to bring the other edge into contact with the blade, and you just keep increasing the slice.
One thing I've thought about a lot, mostly this came from shooting through animals and burying the tough head in the dirt. I kept seeing shoot through something, the tough head goes in the dirt, and I would have spots that were not sharp and spots that were. And that was not probably from the animal. I can't verify that. I intend to test that by putting a target behind a pig and shooting through it just to see how much damage is done. But I got to thinking, I was like, okay, wow. So from a structural integrity standpoint of the cutting edge, and I think I'm right here, if this little bitty broadhead that's probably got an inch and a quarter long blade takes on 50% damage due to the edge of a scapula rolling it over or dulling it, which is totally possible. It's not because of the quality of the broadhead. Every hit's different. Okay, let's just say this much of the broadhead's compromised. Or worse, that the back is compromised. Because if it's dull, things will slide over the top, could go to the back and cut it. In an ideal world, this half would be damaged. Okay?
Yeah.
You have a non-cutting surface and you've just reduced the broadhead's cutting ability by 50% due to impact with whatever. Let's just, okay? You take the old big fella here and you take half of it out and you still got a ton of cutting surface, whichever direction that happens. To your point, right? It's a long surface for the tissues to go over.
Yep.
And arteries, whether they are microscopic or the diameter of your, thumb or pinky, are semi-muscular. That's how your blood pressure is regulated. And if they hit something that's moderately sharp, they tend to skid. I've done it trying to stick people right here with a needle to get arterial blood gas, and their artery rolls out of the way. That's not good customer service.
No, it's not any fun. I've had that problem a few times when people were trying to put a needle in my arm to get a blood sample or put an IV in.
Yeah,
I've
absolutely.
been to those.
So what's the next thing we ought to talk about on mechanical advantage outside of the fact it's long and skinny and it's a high penetrator for the usable force at impact?
Okay, well, having that lower angle of attack from a high mechanical advantage broadhead, and you sort of touched on this, it reduces the damage stress on the broadhead.
Absolutely.
In other
Okay.
words,
Yeah. Right.
If opposed to hitting a bone at a steep angle, it's hitting it at a very gradual angle.
Right, it's
So
not
you're less
chopping.
likely to damage either the blade
Hmm.
or the cutting edge.
I guess
So
that would also contribute to less redirects too, right? I mean, you're talking about
it would.
you get
If
an
it
angle like
does,
this coming
glance
in
off,
and it
glancing off
hits,
at a lower angle is going to mean less deflection.
because nobody takes a steak knife, puts it on top of the steak, and hits it with their fist.
That's right. Just think of that steak on your plate. How do you
Hmm.
cut it? You drag that knife across it with a knife at a low angle. You don't put that steak on there and go whack, whack, whack,
In
and try to
fact,
cut it that way.
are there any tools out there? Are there any hand tools for cutting out there that are real steep?
No,
Even a
there
wood
are
chisels, even wood chisels are
splitting
pretty low
tools
angle.
and things like that. Log splitters.
Yeah, but
But
that's not fair because they've got almost infinite pressure. So
they
the
have
machine,
incredible. They're like that shark.
yeah, right. That was my point is the things that have some kind of a device behind them for incredible amounts of pressure, um, generally have a different shape because they'll snap the teeth off if they were long and skinny. But that's the
Yeah,
pressure component. This is a very low energy system, as you've pointed out. 75% of a 22 caliber bullet. That's the KE for an arrow.
yeah, 70 to 75%.
So we have to conserve that energy at the highest rate possible. We've identified that it's going to have less energy wasted as it presses in. It's cutting on a long surface like a steak knife and tends to not redirect, probably not as much blade damage. It's one of the things that's so hard for me to accept on the mechanicals with their angle of attack where they're really flat. So they're coming into bones like the chops
They are. They are more of a chop action than a slicing action.
and a very low energy platform. Whether that energy, now to be clear, the 75% of a 22 caliber bullet is a 700 grain arrow and a 400 grain arrow. So they're all about the same. The KE,
Yep.
mind boggling, is about the same.
Well,
So,
your bow has a set amount of stored energy,
right.
and even if you transferred 100% of it to your arrow, you still can't equal the energy of a 22 long rifle.
Right, right. And a 22
There,
long rifle
there,
requires,
there apparently is a crossbow on the market that will come within 3 foot-pounds of the kinetic energy of the standard velocity 22 long rifle. That's
oh
the
my.
highest arrow energy I know of.
And last time I was hunted around with a 22 when you were a kid or whatever. As the animals get larger, you better have really, really good shot placement because it
Yep.
doesn't have the pop that you would expect. What's the next thing we could talk about on this topic?
Well, there are probably a lot of things that we're missing on there. But now, one of the things that people need to not forget is that regardless of the broadhead you're shooting and its mechanical advantage, you must not overlook the importance of having an ultra sharp cutting edge,
Mm.
because that ultra sharp cutting edge contributes both to the penetration, because it's going to slice the tissues easier, cutting
Mhm.
down tissue resistance, and it's going to increase the tissue damage that you do. And tissue damage is the bottom line.
Yeah.
You've got to damage the tissues. And mechanicals, despite their 2.5, 3 inch cut width, oftentimes do not damage much tissue. And all you got to do is look at a few wound channels and you can see that. For one thing, the blades on them tend to not be nearly as sharp as anyone that's good at sharpening can get on a rigid fixed blade traditional type head. Uh, they just don't have that edge on there, and the blades on them are so flimsy. There's really no way you can increase their sharpness. You can't stone them. You can't strop them. Literally, not much you can do to increase the sharpness of the way you received them from the manufacturer.
I've stropped a few of the stainless punch out, mass produced broadheads and actually been able to increase the sharpness a little bit. But back to my earlier comment about shooting into the earth. When I shot Muzzy broadheads 100 years ago, they were always mangled.
Yeah.
And I know that I shot enough stuff with them that it wasn't always the ground. There wasn't, not every, well, actually, most of the arrows went through it because I was shooting aluminums back then. A 2018 was probably 600 grains back then.
Yeah.
But so I shot through a lot of animals, but I know that I shot enough things with it that I didn't hit the earth 100% of the time, causing all the blade damage. They were shredded and chewed up. And when I was younger, I thought that was a good thing. But now I'm looking back going, most of it was dull. You turned it from a smooth cutting edge to a serrated edge with very small areas, tiny areas that were sharp. And that doesn't allow those tissues, in my comment about the arteries earlier, to roll across the bad stuff with any consistency. So everybody listening here, we're getting a little bit in the weeds here, but remember, this is all about reproducible consistency. Because I had a comment from somebody this week. One of my subscribers hit a deer kind of high and broke its shoulder blades and its spine and rolled it up, shooting like 600 grains with a single bevel. And somebody commented, if he was shooting a faster arrow, he wouldn't have hit that high. And I got to thinking, that's a straw man argument. I'm getting a little off of rabbit trail, but I'm going to come back to where I say this is back to the blades, the damage, etc. Every individual shot is like rolling dice. You do not gain any percentage increase in lethality. Every shot's individual. And when you roll dice, it's the same odds. So what we want to do is reduce the variables. High mechanical advantage, razor sharp, can take on hard impacts the most amount of times, not to have one Muzzy go through fine, the next one shredded. That's extreme variability.
Yeah. And you're going to have that. You just cannot predict the shot up until somebody makes a miniature JDAM kit that you can put on your arrow to make it a smart arrow, like a guided bomb.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Until that happens, you just absolutely, you're rolling the dice. It's a crapshoot.
Every shot's a crapshoot.
Anywhere because the animal gets a vote.
Yeah, that's the one thing. I keep getting a couple of comments. I've had some pictures come in. Some people had some struggles shooting deer, and the deer just spinning stuff, and it's just hard. The one consistent thing that I've had, I'm going to do a video on this, or maybe you and I will talk about it. To the point of having high quality steel mechanical advantage and a very efficient penetrator. If we screw up or the deer votes and we do not recover, did your arrow system fail? And I think those are two different points.
This is personal opinion. I've got no fact to back it up. But I think more seriously wounded animals are not recovered because hunters today don't have the tracking skills to find the animal.
No, there's no doubt. Man, you go to Africa and watch those guys. The first guy I ever tracked with in Africa had a cataract in his right eye,
Mhm.
and it was in the dark. And he didn't exactly have the best flashlight. And he was walking full speed. He was walking full speed in the dark.
Yeah.
There wasn't like lots of blood and stuff. He was looking at the tracks, and we've lost that. And that's just a function of not getting to. I mean, we're a urban society, and we don't get to spend time in the woods um, as much as we could or should. And then secondarily, we're not really gonna die if we don't get them. The guys who are hunting for food because that's their only resource, they have a different level of investment
Yeah.
in getting it, right?
That's right. You know, at the end of that trail is the grocery store.
That's right.
And it's important to them. You know, we had a tracker up in Tanzania that could track at a jot, not a full flat out run, but he jotted faster than I can run or
Mm-hmm.
could run before my back injury.
Mm-hmm.
We had many times tell him, slow down, we can keep up with you.
Yeah, right. And there
And
was no
it
GPS to
was
mark him with,
he could track
so that was hard.
fast.
We didn't find him. So, uh, back to the mechanical advantage piece and your arrow system not failing. That's the ultimate goal. So when you have, I think what you're saying here, Ed, is when you have a high quality penetrator uses very little effort to go through. Should this scenario happen and the animal spins, drops, rolls out, and the broadhead exits the other side of the animal, the arrow did its job and Murphy showed up.
Yep. Now Murphy shows up once in a while.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, that's
You might
possible.
be human.
It's not real frequent.
Yeah,
If
right,
you
right,
want to
right.
know the truth of it.
So, but if you do shoot something and you get low penetration, half an arrow in them, do not exit the other side of the animal because that means your arrow path did not hit every possible lethal thing.
Yep.
Then your arrow system failed you, and Murphy may have showed up.
Yeah. But, you know, and this kind of ties with what we were talking about before. I have never lost a gut hit animal.
No
And
kidding.
I don't attribute that to the arrow system. Although the single bevels do create a starburst cut, which helps with hemorrhaging, you know, through the intestines. But I attribute it to knowing how to manage the animal and having the tracking skills to be able to find that animal.
Mm-hmm.
And tracking skills, and we need to do a video on this sometime. It
Okay.
is far more than following the tracks or a blood trail.
Mm-hmm.
That's not tracking. That is following footprints and blood trail.
Mm-hmm.
Tracking is an entirely different thing. And
One thing that happens here
on that.
On the ranch is we tend to have either open pasture or very thick oak bots, and the oak bots there's nothing under them, right? Because there's light can't penetrate, so that game totally changes. But in the grass, when they're running through the grass, I tend to squat down during daytime. It's easier.
Mhm.
Squat and look down the grass.
Yeah, you can see
And
the
you'll
path
actually
of the
see
grass and you can the trail.
it's not super obvious, but once you start looking at it, you go, God, that kind of looks like the grass has been disrupted a little bit. And then once they turn into the under the oak mott's, you just got to start looking for leaves and stuff and pressed out things, and it gets a little bit more
Yeah,
tedious with less with fewer things for the animal to run into or
yeah,
disrupt, I guess you could say, because mostly I shoot at pigs, and those damn things are like bullets going through that stuff. Nothing, everything glances off of them because they're shaped just like a bullet. Hey, they have high mechanical advantage. Pigs
they
have high
do.
mechanical.
Just look at their shape. And
Yeah,
the European boars are even worse. They really are.
they got
They're
long
tall
noses on them.
and narrow, very pointed on the front end. They flare all the way back to the hips. They're high mechanical advantage.
Uh, we can't forget our sponsors for the videos. So I am a coffee problem guy, and
Hey, that's
Hunter's
good call.
Blend, if you use code ABF or code RF, 10% of your purchase will go directly to the foundation. So if you use my code, I don't get a dime of it. It's going to the foundation so we can continue doing everything that we want to do in the future. And Ed, let us know about the website and the monthly newsletter and all that good stuff.
Yeah, we want to put a commercial in there because who knows, we might have a new viewer that doesn't know about it. The foundation is a 503,
C
501c3
501c3.
nonprofit foundation. And all of our board members are non paid volunteers. So all of the money you donate is going to the research or to our one outside expense at the moment, which is the guy that manages the website for us.
Mm-hmm.
Because none of us are clever enough to know how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to hire somebody to do that. But other than that, every penny goes into the research because we buy every product we test across the counter, just like the average bow hunter does. Often we buy it anonymously, so the manufacturer has no idea it's going into the testing. We do not accept donations from the archery industry. That takes away a huge pile of money.
Yep.
Because we had some of the people in the industry, some of the manufacturers want to sponsor the foundation. And we just can't do that because that would bias or give the appearance of bias of the testing. So we are the only tester that is totally independent of the archery industry. We've got no axe to grind. We're looking for the most effective piece of equipment that the bow hunter can use and put the information out for him to know about it or her to know about it.
Right.
And also, we're getting more active in preserving bow hunting around the world. In case people don't know, there are two of the Australian states that have prohibited bow hunting. Tasmania and South Australia's ban goes into effect December 1, which is upon us. And I'm doing a podcast this weekend with the Australian folks for some information that they're going to try to use to help counteract
Right.
The ban. And we're also supplying any data we can supply them, any information we can give them to help them fight this ban. And these bans, both of them came about because of idiots and people doing unethical things.
Yeah.
One, because somebody shot a wallaby with a target error and left it running around a residential area for days before it died. And the other, because of a well-known YouTuber who went down and made a pin cushion out of a buffalo trying to kill it by using what I would even consider inadequate for a deer hunting setup.
Well, let me back up on that a little bit because that particular state, and Australia has states like the US,
Yes.
that particular state of Australia was already in motion. This is not something that just that happened and then all of a sudden it wasn't like putting a fat kid on a teeter totter. It didn't collapse.
Not in motion.
Right. They're
already everywhere. I just
pressing.
got an email from someone in New South Wales, Australia. They're talking about a ban on bow hunting.
Right.
It's been brought up there. Now, whether it's going to happen, who knows? I hunted a lot in New South Wales. Pigs and feral goats. Some fantastic bow hunting down there.
Yeah.
And I would sure hate to see that go away because there are a lot of bow hunters in New South Wales.
Well, yeah, all around the world. So we have about 5 minutes to land the plane. So I want to land the plane on this thought. So this discussion again every shot's the roll of the dice. Okay, there's no increased odds on your second, third, or 10th animal. It's this. It's a brand new. Every shot is its own individual experience. My role for the last 15 years of my real job in the medical device space, I'm basically a paralegal. And when we get into little battles over agreement issues and possibly go to court, et cetera, someone has to have the data. Stuff has to be written down to support your point. You can't just say, I've killed 100 deer and it works. It doesn't work like that at the legislative level. Somebody's got to bring documentation and a strategy to counteract whatever you're fighting about. It doesn't matter. We're talking about bow hunting and trying to defend it. And I said this to Ed and the ABF team the other day. The only data set out there that can be presented in a legal format as any kind of strategy to increase lethality is Ed's work. And I don't know that he was, well, the original study was to legalize bow hunting in South Africa, but I don't know that you had forecasted 30 years
No,
into the future that it could be used in a court of law as the defense for people to keep flying sticks all around the earth and chasing critters like we should be able to do.
yeah, that's an important thing for people to remember. And I forgot to mention a couple of things about the foundation. One, if you go to our website, you can subscribe to our newsletter for free. All you got to do is sign up for it. You got no obligation. You don't have to contribute anything. We try, I'll emphasize that, we try to put it out on a monthly basis. But there are only 5 of us,
Yep.
and I can't do much. So basically, we got 4 people doing all the work, everything from bookkeeping on. And bookkeeping for taxes takes up a lot of time. But some months we don't manage to get it out. But we get it out as often as we can. And lately we've been doing pretty good of getting it out on a monthly basis. But you're not losing anything if we don't get it out. It's free.
Yeah.
So go
It'll
to the
come.
website, sign up for it. And then my final thing is please, please consider donating. If it's just $5, without your donations from individual bow hunters, we cannot continue our research. So please donate to the foundation.
All right. Sounds like you've got a call coming in, probably from New
I
South
got a
Wales.
call coming in.
Well, that'll wrap up this version for Mechanical Advantage and everything else we talked about. And please donate to the foundation, sign up for the newsletter, and support the sponsors that are donating their hard-earned money. If you make a purchase, that's money that comes out of their profit side, but they're donating it to the foundation to help us keep going. Everyone have a great day, and thanks for watching. Ed, as always, thank you, and we'll keep talking about our next topic. In the comments section, leave us comments about what you want to understand. That would really help, and we'll try to answer them. See you later, everybody.
Absolutely. Good night. Thank